Hi, I'm Willie Mayette, creator of Jazzedge Academy, and in this lesson I'm going to show you how to play blues piano. We're going to start very basic. We're going to break this down into 8 different steps, right? So you're going to be learning everything from your chords, your rhythms, how to create licks, accompaniments, and then we're going to put it all together. And the accompaniment that I just played right there, that blues head, you're going to learn that note for note, and you're going to know how to be able to play that at the end of this lesson. So let's get started. All right, so the first place that we get started is with chords, right? So we're going to start with our basic blues chords. So in the key of C, we would have C dominant 7th, F dominant 7th, and G dominant 7th. Those would be the 3 chords that we would utilize for our blues. Those are not the only chords we can use. As you get more advanced, you can add in extra chords, but for right now, this is where we're going to start. And we're usually not going to play these chords in a block style like this. A lot of times these are called 7th chords or block chords, 4-note chords. We're not going to play them just like this. Instead, we're going to play them as chord shells. And shells mean that we're going to take out some of the notes just to open up the sound a little bit. So now we're going to play a root 3-7 chord shell. We're going to take the 5th of the chord out. When we go down to F, root 3-7, and then on G7, root 3-7. Now one thing that you'll notice is on the F chord, it sounds a little bit low, it sounds a little bit tense down there, right? A little muddy, right? That's because of this interval of a major third. We have something called lower interval limits on the piano, or on music in general. And that basically means that you could play an interval just so low on an instrument. Like if I play that down there, it just sounds terrible. You can't discern either note. It just sounds like a blob. Sometimes we're going to play root 3-7 like this, but then we're also going to play just root 7 as well. We take that third out, play just the root and the 7. So we have root 3-7, root 7, root 3-7. Okay? So those are the chords that we're going to be doing, either that F7 or this F7, and then that G7. Right, so practice those chords, make sure you get them down, and if you can do it without looking, even better. So the next thing that we want to focus on is the rhythm of the blues. So typically when playing a blues, if I put on my iReal Pro track here and I play this, this is a shuffle blues, and take a listen to the underlying rhythm you hear. Da 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 da. Right? It's not straight. It's a swung rhythm. There are basically 2 different ways of approaching rhythm in music. You could play it straight, or it can be played swung. Typically when we play jazz, right, swing music, or shuffle, like some blues, R&B, that kind of stuff, a lot of times that stuff might be swung. It's a swung 8th note. When we play classical music or Latin or funk, like a lot of times that music is played straight. Okay? Don't think of it in terms of like it's hip or not hip, right? If it's straight, it's not hip. No. It could be very hip playing it straight. It just means what do we do with those 8th notes, right? So in the 8th notes, it could either be D-ba, 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 or 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. That's if it's played straight, or swung 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. I don't say 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and instead I use a vocalization approach that I created and I say D ba 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 D ba. So typically in the blues, a lot of times it is a triplet based, meaning that you'll have an underlying triplet feel going on. Da 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 da. Right? You've heard that before. Right? You've heard that sound. So that's a string of triplets. And it sounds like this. Triplet, 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 triplet. And if I play it along with the iReal Pro track and just say those triplets, I get this. 2, here we go. Triplet, 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 triplet. Right? So you could hear that underlying triplet feel. If we were to write that out, it would look like this, right? If we were to do the triplet feel and do 8th notes, it would look like this. But now, one thing you'll notice is that it's not a very easy way to read that music, right? So instead, what we typically would do is we would just write out 8th notes and then we would just know that we need to play them swung. So you'd see just a steady string of eighth notes, and it would be dee ba dee ba dee ba dee ba. Let's just take a look at an example here. Now, if I wrote out this example and I do this, right? So it's an easy example to read, but I'm swinging those rhythms. If I didn't swing it, it would sound like this. Right? But if I swung it, another way of writing this out is like this. But if you take a look at it, which one would you rather read? The one on the left or the one on the right? I think you would rather read the one on the left. It's a lot easier to read. All right, so the first thing that I want you to try and do with this rhythm is just try doing this underlying triplet feel. I'm going to bring the tempo down to 80 here, just so it's not too fast for you. And all I want you to do is you could play it on the note G if you want, or just say it, clap it, do whatever you want. Here we go. Triplet, 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 triplet. And you can go through the entire blues form and do that. You could play it on chords if you want. You can move from the note C to F to G if you want. Okay, you could try applying it to scales. The main point is this: you need to understand that rhythm of the blues so that you could play it properly. So now let's move on to blues piano scales. And there are basically two scales that you just have to know. The very first scale is the blues scale. And these are the notes of the blues scale. So we have, if we were to relate this back to a major scale, so remember, I'm relating it back to a C major scale. So if I relate it back to a C major scale, you can see I have the root, I have flat 3, I have 4, I have sharp 4, I have 5, I have flat 7, and I have my root again. Okay? So here are the notes of that C blues scale. Fingering wise, I go up 1, 2, 3, 4, then cross underneath 1, 2, 3. And I like that because my fourth finger is available if I want to go up to that high E flat as well. Right? But just going the octave, it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, cross underneath, 1, 2, 3. When I come down, 3, 2, 1, cross over, 4, 3, 2, 1. You should practice that scale going up and down without repeating notes. So it should sound like this. And I would play it swung. So make sure you have that D, ba, D, ba, D, ba, D, ba, versus. Okay, so that's the blues scale. Okay? The minor pentatonic scale is a derivative of the major pentatonic scale. So if I have my E flat major pentatonic scale, but I started on C, that's my minor pentatonic scale. We don't have to dive too deep into that. There's an easier way of looking at that minor pentatonic scale. Go back to my blues scale. If I just take out that sharp 4 in there, guess what? There's my minor pentatonic scale. So the only difference between a blues scale and a minor pentatonic scale is one note. It's that F sharp, okay? In the key of C, obviously, okay? When we move to other keys, that note will be different, all right? Okay, so just that one note is different. So the fingering, though, is a little bit different as well. I play 1, 2, 3, cross underneath, 1, 2, 3. Come down, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1. Down. I suggest that you practice them just by themselves. If you want, you could always add in a C7 chord down there. Just to kind of get that sound. Now, one area that confused me when I was first starting piano is, do I need to play an F blues scale and then a G blues scale? So when I move to the 4 chord and the 5 chord, do I need to change the scale? And the answer is no, you do not have to. Can you? Well, of course. You could play different scales if you want to. Usually not the F blues scale and the G blues scale. You might do some like kind of bluesy pentatonic kind of stuff. It's a little bit more advanced and outside of the scope of this lesson. But just know when you're playing the blues, whatever key the blues is in, that's the blues scale that you can use for all of the chords. Now, not every note of the blues scale is going to sound great on every chord. If I play F sharp while playing an F chord down there, or F sharp while playing a G chord, obviously it's going to sound a little bit tense. So you will have to massage the notes a little bit and think and use your ears a little bit to figure out which of the notes that you like. But don't worry, I'm going to give you all different licks that are going to work well over all of the chords. So now let's talk about the blues form. So the blues form is, number one, first of all, very interesting because all of the chords are dominant seventh chords. There's minor blues, there's even major blues, there's all different kinds of stuff that you could do that's a little bit more advanced. Right now we're just talking the bare bone basics. So we're going to generalize a little bit. So when I say all of the chords are dominant chords, for our purposes here today, all of these chords are dominant chords. However, you may add in some other chord qualities as you get a little bit more advanced in your playing. All right, but a basic blues is 3 chords, the 1, the 4, the 5 chord, and they're all dominant seventh chords. Typically, the form would be the 1 chord for 1 measure, and a lot of times the 4 chord will come in the very next measure. And then we go back to the 1 chord for 2 more measures, and then the 4 chord for 2 measures, then the 1 chord for 2 measures, and then the 5 chord for 1 measure, the 4 chord for 1 measure, the 1 chord for 1 measure, and the 5 chord for 1 measure. So the first thing we should do is let's just go through and just play the block chords over all of the chords of the blues. So here we go. C7. And you can go down to the F, even though yes, it's a little bit low right now, it's okay for right now. Don't wait till the very last minute to get your hand ready to play the next chord. Notice I'll start about beat 3, start moving. That way you're ready to go. Otherwise, if you wait till the very last minute, you might do this. Right? That kind of feels rushed. Right? You don't want to do that. So you don't have to hold out for the entire measure. Now let's do it with the shells. You could do that shell, or if you want to play just the root 7 shell, that would be perfectly fine there as well. And when we end the blues, we always go back and end on the first chord, the 1 chord. So if we're playing a blues in the key of C, we're going to end on a C chord. If we're playing a blues in the key of, say, B flat, we're going to end on a B flat 7 chord, okay? So don't end on that 5 chord because it's going to sound very unresolved and it's going to not sound like the end, okay? So make sure you go back to that 1 chord to resolve that. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to work on a very easy, simplified accompaniment. So if you take a look at this accompaniment, what we're doing is we're literally playing a short 8th note on beat 1 and then a short 8th note on beat 3. So it sounds like this. Here we go. So it's just a very basic, easy accompaniment. And what we're doing is we are comping chords in the left hand. We're just like playing just short, you know, just short little stabs on the chords. Make sure the chords are not too heavy, meaning they're not too loud. You're not pressing down too hard on them. because we want to make sure that the right hand has room to like really shine, because that's where all of our improvisation is going to happen. So the next accompaniment is a syncopated accompaniment, and it's very similar to the easy accompaniment. The only difference is that the second time we hit the chord in the measure, it's going to hit a little bit earlier, right? So it's going to hit on the and of 2. So that would be dee ba dee ba, dee ba dee ba, dee ba dee ba, dee ba dee ba, right? So it sounds like this. Dee ba dee ba, dee ba dee ba, right? So the chord comes in just before beat 3. Let's try playing that with the iReal Pro track. Here we go. So make sure you're grabbing at those chords. Make sure that you're not playing them too heavy. Right? Now the third accompaniment that we have is a more advanced accompaniment. Here we go. So let's break this down now. So first of all, the first 2 measures, completely the same as the other syncopated accompaniment. But in measure 3, we do this. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. So this right here is an F major triad, right, with C in the bass. And I'm also doing that little grace note there, up to the 3rd of that F chord. And then we resolve back down to the C7. In measure number 4, we go from the C7, then we hit G flat 7, then we go down to F7. Now, I could do an entire lesson on tritone substitution, which we might very well do. If you're interested in it, leave a comment below this video, and then I might add that to the list for mini lessons. All right, so basically what's going on is the G flat 7 is replacing a C7 chord, right? So this is what we call our tritone substitution. It's a tritone away from the C. So basically, we're replacing a C dominant 7th chord with a dominant 7th chord, a tritone away from the root, which is a sharp 4, flat 5. That is the interval of a tritone. So rather than playing a C7, we play a G flat 7. It's an easier way of thinking about this. When you want to do a tritone substitution, think about what chord you're going to, and just go up a half step, make a dominant chord that then resolves down a half step. So if I was going to C, I go to D flat, and it resolve down to C. If I'm going to E, I would go to F, and it resolve down to E. If I'm going to B flat, I go to B, and then resolve down to B flat. I just go up a half step, make a dominant 7th chord, and resolve down. So here we're going to F7. So all we do is we go up a half step to the G flat and then resolve it down to the F7. Why do we do that? Just adds some motion, adds a little bit of complexity to the progression, and it just creates some really cool tension and kind of jazzy flavor to it. All right. So that's the advanced accompaniment. You want to make sure that you get that down before we start adding licks in the right hand. So now we're going to focus on some improvisational rhythms. So a lot of times what teachers will do is they'll just kind of like give you notes and say, go ahead and start improvising. But what I've found over the years is that approach is not great for a lot of students because they get overwhelmed. So instead, what I've created over years of doing this is an approach in which we start with rhythm first, we utilize our scale or our ingredients that I call it, and then we create our licks that then we play over our form. If you want to see this in a kind of jazz realm, I did a mini lesson on that, how to improvise jazz piano, so be sure to take a look at that video as well. Link is in the description. All right, so we got 5 different rhythms here. All right, so let's take a look at the first rhythm. First rhythm, super easy. It's just all straight triplets. So it's trip-a-let, 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 trip-a-let. And that's how we vocalize our triplets. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the metronome on 80 beats per minute. I'm going to go through each one of these rhythms. All right, so here's the first rhythm. Here we go. Trip-a-let, 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 trip-a-let. Now, you might vocalize it differently. You might say 1 E, 2 E, 3 E, 4 E. You might say 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3. Whatever vocalization you use, absolutely fine. I like to say trip-a-let, trip-a-let, because it's closest to the word triplet. Okay? All right, rhythm number 2 is exactly the same as rhythm number 1, except we have that 8th note rest in the first triplet. All right? So it's going to be trip-a-let, 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 trip-a-let. So it's trip-a-let, 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 trip-a-let. Okay, so if we put our metronome on again, start to think the trip-a-let, 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 trip-a-let. Trip-a-let, trip-a-let, trip-a-let. And so we have that nice little pause in the beginning of the rhythm. Rhythm number 3 is going to have a string of 2 triplets, and then we move into 4 eighth notes. So that's trip-a-let, trip-a-let, dee-ba, dee-ba. Trip-a-let, trip-a-let, dee-ba, dee-ba. So remember, the triplets are moving a little bit faster than the eighth notes, right? The eighth notes are 2 attacks in 1 beat. The triplets are 3 attacks in 1 beat. All right, so let's put the metronome on. Let's try this. Here we go. Trip-a-let, trip-a-let, dee-ba, dee-ba. 2, try it again. Trip-a-let, trip-a-let, dee-ba, dee-ba. Rhythm number 4 now, we're going to take that first triplet. It's very similar to rhythm number 3, but in rhythm number 4 now, we're going to take the first set of triplets, and we're going to instead just have an 8th note for the first beat. So it'd be ba, trip-a-let, dee-ba, dee-ba. Here we go with the metronome. Ready, go. Ba, trip-a-let, dee-ba, dee-ba. Ba, trip-a-let, dee-ba, dee-ba. And if you need a placeholder for the first beat, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll say, ba, trip-a-let, because it gives you that strong downbeat. All right? Try it with me. Here we go. Ba, trip-a-let, dee-ba, dee-ba. All right? And then finally, the last rhythm, pretty simple actually. Da, dee, ba, ba, dee, ba. All right? Just showing you how you could just use regular quarter notes and eighth notes and rest to get some cool rhythms as well. Here we go. Play it with me. Da, dee, ba, dee, ba. 2, try it again. Da, dee, ba, dee, ba. Hey, now, I know going through rhythms, it might be boring for some of you. Maybe you didn't even watch this, okay? But I will tell you that having strong rhythm is extremely important when it comes to playing any instrument, especially the piano, especially if you want to be able to improvise. So now, the next phase of this, what we do is we take the rhythm that we just learned in the last step, and then we take the scales that we learned earlier, and we apply the notes from the scales to the rhythm. So the first lick here, real great lick to learn. Very popular lick. So here we are in the key of C, right? It's just the F sharp to G to B flat. And it's all those triplets. Trip-a-let, trip-a-let, trip-a-let. And a lot of times I like to use second finger, cross underneath with my thumb, and then use either my fourth finger or my middle finger. I like the fourth finger there. That feels comfortable to me. Some players might like to do 2, 3, 4. Okay, so pretty simple lick, right? So trip-a-let, trip-a-let, trip-a-let. Okay, and we'll break all of these licks down in our practice actions as well. All right, so here we go. Let's try this lick. All right, so the next lick, and And one thing that's great about this lick is, number one, it's utilizing this minor pentatonic, okay, scale. No F sharp in there. But you'll also notice that it does kind of like a sequencing. So we start with the first two notes of that minor pentatonic, but then we come up to the F, and then... So notice the groupings of three-note groupings. Notice coming down from the F, coming down from the E flat, coming down from the C. So we go, right, then. So you see it's how it's stepping right down. Triplet, triplet, triplet. And you could probably get away with just using this for your fingering. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and starting. But if you want to cross over, you could do that as well. Okay, now let's try that with the metronome. Here we go. To try it again. And let me play it nice and slow. So it's triplet, 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 triplet. Great job. All right, next lick. This one is rhythm number 3, and we have triplet, triplet, dee-ba, dee-ba. So I'm starting with my middle finger, trip-let, cross over 4th finger, trip-let, come back to the 4th finger, dee-ba, dee-ba, trip-let, trip-let, dee-ba, dee-ba. The vocalization helps. I suggest you try doing it. Here we go. Let's do it once more. Ready, go. Remember, like I said, if you need help with these licks, take a look at those practice actions where I will break them down and we will focus just on those. Lick number 4, we start with that ba, trip, ba, let. So this is kind of cool because you get this kind of double stop in here, right? It's really just octaves, but it's 2 notes at the same time. Ba, trip, ba, let. I'd probably use finger like that. 2nd finger, thumb, 2nd finger, middle, and then thumb and pinky. So it's ba, trip, ba, let, dee, ba, dee, ba. So now let's play that with the metronome. Here we go. Excellent. All right, and finally lick number 5, pretty simple. 2, try it again. And you can play that quarter note, can hold it out like I just did, or play it short. Bump it up, boop it up, bump it up, boop it up. Try it with the metronome. 2, here we go. 2, try it again. 2, one more time. Awesome job. All right, so those are your 5 licks. Obviously, you want to get those down, get them underneath your fingertips, because now we're going to put them together along with our accompaniment. So now we're going to put our licks along with our accompaniment. And what we typically will have in the blues is you will have a blues head. Okay, blues head. The blues head is the melody, right? And it's usually a very simplified melody, something that can be easily sung, right? It's usually not overly complicated, and it falls into this call and response pattern, which I'm going to show you in just a second. The blues head, you typically play that at the beginning, and then you would solo over the blues, and then you would play the blues head again. the typical form of the blues, when we're playing blues at the piano, a lot of times we don't play a lot of melodies of the blues. A lot of times it's more groove-based and improvisation-based, and it's really focused on the vocals, right? You know, my baby done left me, and now I'm sad as I can be. You know, it's like some vocal line, and then the piano or guitar or whatnot is just supporting underneath with a lot of licks, riffs, and stuff like that. So a lot of times when I'm playing blues piano, you go, times it's just improvising and just playing over the groove, not necessarily playing a melody that we all know and love. But when we're getting started with the blues, it's helpful for you to start to create your own blues heads. Why? Because that provides some structure. Because if you just come right out and start improvising, it's going to be different every time. When you have a blues head or a blues melody, that's something that you could play, that the listener can kind of clue into, then you can improvise and then you can come back to the melody and end your blues. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to create a couple of different blues heads. All we're doing is we're literally taking the licks and it's like a copy and paste. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a call response. Now, if you want to get much deeper into this, Paul did a great premiere course on Blues Piano 101. You could check that out over at Jazzedge Academy. He dives deep into the history and all of this, really explaining the blues in just a great amount of detail. Students really love that premiere course, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to do call, response. So now the call is just going to be a lick or two. So you notice what I did here was I took two licks and I put them back to back. So I have lick number 1 going into lick number 5. So that sounds like this. And I do the same thing again. And you notice the left hand is just right on the beat, right? Because this is the easy accompaniment. And now here's my response coming. Now I'm going to do lick number 4 going into lick number 2. So we have... And you'll notice that at the end of lick 2, I ended on the C. Otherwise, we would have ended like this. Right? It sounds kind of nice just to end on something, so I did this. Now, let's put on the backing track here and play along with that so you can hear just how cool this sounds when it's all put together, all right? And I'm going to also speed this up a little bit just so you can hear it in a little bit more context. We'll do it at 100 beats per minute. Let's review and make sure we understand what we did and just how powerful it is and how easy it is. So for the first 2 measures, I literally took 2 licks that I created. And those licks could have been licks that you created, it could be licks that you learned, it could be variations of these licks, okay? So basically just 2 measures of improvisation. Question might come up, well, does it have to be 2 measures? Could I have played, for 3 measures or 4 measures? Sure, you could have played longer if you wanted to. But remember, that space and that kind of silence in the right hand sounds nice. It sounds good to have that space in there. So I would suggest you don't overplay. All right, so we have those 2 licks, put them together. Then we repeated it again in measure number 5 on the F7 chord, okay? And then we changed to 2 separate licks in 5, 6, 7, 8 in measure number 9. Okay, so in measure number 9 we picked 2 other licks. So it's a very powerful and very easy way of being able to create a blues melody. All right, so now let's try this syncopated one with licks. Now here you'll notice what I did was I changed the licks around. We're not going to do the same licks. We're going to try something different. So now we did lick number 3, then we had a measure of space, then we went back into lick number 3, a measure of space, lick number 3, a measure of space, lick number 3. So you see how we used lick number 3 4 times, and then finally in measure number 9 we did lick number 2 and then lick number 5. Okay, so let me play the entire thing for you now. I'll put the tempo at 90 now. Let's do the whole thing. Here we go. So now let's move on to the more advanced accompaniment along with licks. So here you see what I did was I started with lick number 4, then I did lick number 2, then we have 2 measures of space in the right hand, but the measures of space in the right hand are going to get filled by some of those passing chords in there, right? The F to the C, right? F over C going to C7. Then in measure number 5, we have lick 4, lick 2 again, right? And then in measure number 9, then we go lick 1 and then lick 3. Right, so now you can hear in that advanced accompaniment along with those licks, it sounds pretty decent, right? And especially if we were to speed this up, you know, let's say we go up to like, say 120 beats per minute, you could get a really cool sound. Now, I'm not saying that you have to play it that fast, but the point is that when you go from slow to fast, it really sounds a lot different, doesn't it? Sometimes when you're playing it really slow, it sounds one way, but as you speed it up, it sounds another way. So you got a lot of room in there to play around with those different tempi and different speeds. All right, so that's the advanced accompaniment. Now, the real way to get all of this material down is to write your own. So now what I've done is I've included for you all 3 accompaniments, okay? The easy, the advanced, the syncopated, and the advanced, along with a blank right hand so you could write in your own licks. In fact, all of this music you can download. Take a look at the link in the video description below. It will tell you how to be able to download all of this music. When you go to the mini lesson page, I also have recommended lessons for you to take a look at as well. If you're interested in minor blues or kind of more jazz blues, Ray Charles blues, there's all different blues that you can learn that we have available at Jazzedge Academy. So be sure to take a look and take a look at those different lessons. Now, if you like this lesson, please do me a favor. Subscribe to the channel and be sure to like the video. And most important, leave your comment below and let me know, what do you like about the lesson? What do you want to learn more about? Because I take those comments and those are the comments that I use to create new lessons. So if you want more of these mini lessons, like really rich lessons with sheet music and backing tracks and all of that, let me know, and I'd be more than happy to put those up onto the Jazzedge YouTube channel. So anyway, thank you very much for joining me. Be sure to check out Jazzedge Academy. Be sure to check out all of the practice actions as well, which I break down the practice for you step by step, and I will see you in the next mini lesson.